just the differences between the SharePoint 2013 on-premises solution, which is where you set it up on your server in your office, versus the SharePoint Online solution, which is the product you get with Office 365 when you sign up for that. And last but not least, we're going to quickly touch on some challenges and considerations when you're looking at SharePoint or looking to implement SharePoint within your business or organization. So to start off with, is there anyone in the audience today who hasn't seen a SharePoint site before? Feel free to raise your hand or quickly type into the chat box. Fantastic. It looks like most people at least had a bit of a look at it before. And look, it's really a product which is stemmed out of a number of years of evolution and has been around for quite some time. And to be completely honest, when it first came out, it definitely had its holes, and it definitely it wasn't as user-friendly or aesthetically pleasing as it is with the current version, which is 2013. One of the big things that there's a lot of misconceptions around, and a lot of questions that we generally get around about SharePoint. My apologies. Is what is SharePoint, and is it an intranet? Is it a document management platform? Is it a collaboration tool? Can we use it for calendars? What is this product, and what can we do with it? And the truth is, it really has the ability to do a lot of those things, but it also solves a lot of problems around IT costs and access as well. So probably some of the key takeaways from SharePoint, putting SharePoint into your business or your organization, is the fact that it enhances your document control and your document management capabilities. It gives you a sense of organizational unity, and it really promotes a platform where your staff can get together and to collaborate and work on projects and things together within a centralized platform which is accessible to everyone, regardless of where they're working from, is probably the big thing as well. And if they have to work on a tablet, if they're working on a laptop at home, or it really allows you to achieve this kind of centralization or a centralized point of access, regardless of where you're working from. And thanks to the Microsoft Office 365 solution for people who are in a position where they can use cloud-based technologies, or in particularly offshore, overseas hosted cloud technologies, leveraging the Office 365 platform to put SharePoint in place for your business or your organization is now really cost effective in regards to the ongoing costs as well. So I thought what we'd do, just to break down some of the features which we actually use internally to kind of promote collaboration within our organization, is I've got some screenshots of our SharePoint site, and I'm just going to run through the different elements and the different parts of how we use it as well. So the first thing I wanted to touch on is just how we do use it for document management, and how we've set that up to allow people time to kind of work together and access and kind of collaborate on the similar projects. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is just the document libraries and how that's currently being set up in SharePoint 2013. So down the left-hand side of your SharePoint page, you've got a series of what we call headings or links, or what actually Microsoft calls, they call apps. But essentially it's like the top level of your document library within your S drive or your R drive. So as an example, for example, this library section can be considered the top level of your map drive at the moment. So that might be your S drive or your R drive, and then once you click on that, you go to kind of the subsection. So within that folder, within that top level directory, you then got the different folders or different sections that you've broken down on your site. So as you can see, within this particular section, which has been set up for our sales team, we've got a dedicated section for forms, templates, targets, boards, calculators, and so on and so forth. And by clicking on these different kind of subheadings there, it takes you to a different document library within the SharePoint page. And as you can see, with the document libraries, you get a visual representation of what's in there. So whether it would be a folder, whether it's an Office document or a PDF document, you can actually see by the icon what the item is. You can see the title, but you can also go through and see when it was last modified and who it was modified by, which is really useful. One of the newer features which was introduced into SharePoint in the latest revision is this section up the top. And you can see there's a little plus symbol where it says new document or dragon files here. So by clicking on this new document section, it actually brings up a pane where you can create a new folder or even go to the point of creating a new Word or Excel or Office document directly from the SharePoint site. This is really handy for people who don't like swapping from screens or don't like swapping applications. It kind of allows you to bring up your SharePoint document library and start working or start creating a document right from that screen without having to change around too much. The other thing they introduced with that is that drop and drag feature where you can see here. So the idea of that is if you do have people who have gone ahead and created files or documents on their local desktop and they've saved them to their My Documents, or they've saved them to their desktop as an example, and they want to get that into SharePoint. Well, now it's really simple. Just by clicking on the document, dragging it across and dropping it in that little section there, it'll automatically upload the document to that document library you're in as well, which can save you a lot of time, and it saves people a lot of hassle as well. And because it's such a familiar gesture or familiar kind of process within the Windows or the Microsoft Office kind of environment, it makes it feel a little bit more familiar and people are more open to using it as well. Moving on to the document intelligence sides of SharePoint, as you can see, we've got the list of documents in the document library, and there's 3 little dots next to it. Now, the 3 little dots for any of the Microsoft 2013 stuff is basically Microsoft's symbol for options. So by clicking on the options for a particular document, you then get up this little pane here, which has some really useful information, and also takes you through to some of the other advanced features, which we'll get to in a second. So as you can see, you get a bit of a thumbnail preview of the document, and you can quickly flick through and view the different pages. You can see who it was last changed by and what time and date that was changed. You can see who the document shared with. You can even add or edit people who you want to share with as well from this menu too, which is great. Probably the most useful feature I find from this particular menu with the documents is the little URL address bar down the bottom. This is really handy if you need to share a document with someone, and obviously the traditional way of doing that in a standard Windows desktop environment is, you grab the document, you attach it to your email, and you actually send the physical document in the email as an attachment. With SharePoint, you can now have the option, oops, going back, you've now got the option to click on that URL. You can cut and paste that into your email just in the body of where the text is, send that to the person, and they just click on that link, and it automatically opens that document in a read-only version in their web browser. So this is fantastic because it does a couple things. It obviously cuts down on the size of your mailbox for people having a ridiculous amount of attachments in there, but it works really well for if you do have a staff member or someone who's working on the road and they may not be working from a device which has Microsoft Office installed on it. It still gives them the ability to click on that link and view the document in the web browser and potentially edit it through the web browser if they need to as well. So a really, really powerful tool and a really, really great way to kind of promote that collaboration, regardless of what device your staff are working on. Taking it a bit further, so clicking on the options within the options menu again, the next section it takes to is this little pane here. And this gives you some more high-level controls over the document. So you can obviously view the properties of the document and edit properties. You can view and edit in the web browser. The document management side of stuff is SharePoint is generally accessed through here as well. So there's a couple of different options that we have here. So you've got the ability to check the document out. Now, for anyone who's not familiar with that concept, it's very much the same idea as a library book. So let's say I was working on this particular PowerPoint presentation with a group of people, and I wanted to work on the document without anyone jumping into it or getting there and changing anything while I was obviously working on as well. So it's like locking the document. So what I would do, I would click check out the document, and what that would do is then put a little lock symbol next to the document in the SharePoint document library, and if someone clicks on that, it'll actually say that it's been checked out by myself, and it will actually ask them if they want to receive a notification when the document's been checked back in. So really, really handy feature. The other document management feature which is really, really useful is the version history feature. And by clicking on that, it actually brings up a little separate pane here, and you get an overview of the different variations of the document which has existed since it's been put into SharePoint. So as you can see, with this particular PowerPoint document, there's been two versions. There was a version that Ross created back on the 22nd. You can see the time that was created as well, and then you can also see the version that I created, a week or so later. Now, let's say I've jumped in and I've made changes to this document, but Ross has opened up my changes and he's gone, oh, look, I'm not really happy with that, I want to revert that back. So through this version history menu, if Ross has the permission to do so, he can actually go in here, click on the version 1.0, and it'll actually restore that original version of the document, regardless of it already being saved over the top of. So really, really handy, once again, if you are working in with a large group of people and you want to have kind of the administrator rights to the particular document of the project you're working on to be able to go back and change things as well. The other little section you may notice in the version history pane is you've got a little comments column here. Now, comments is basically meant, it's basically there to take advantage of a concept called metadata. Now, metadata is basically little bits of information you can attach to a Word document or an Office document when saving it into SharePoint without actually having to kind of type the information into the document itself. So to give you an example of how that would potentially work is, let's say when I checked this document back in, so when I checked version 2.0 in, when I hit save in Office 2013, there's actually an option to hit comments, and I could leave some comments there for, example, for what the changes I've made on the document, or I could have said, hey Ross, I've changed slide 2, 3, and 4, please review. And when I click save, that'll actually save those comments in the version control of the version history pane here. So once again, just another really useful tool for kind of having visibility over what's been made, the changes in that particular document as well. Controlled access. Now this is probably one of the common misconceptions I hear about SharePoint when people are investigating or evaluating whether it's right for them. Obviously the big motivating point is, yes, people can work on multiple devices, they can work from home, or they can work on their phone when they're out and about on the road. If people are logging in outside the office, how does that affect security, and does that mean they can access different parts of the SharePoint site? And one of the great things about SharePoint is it is a username and password driven product, so you do have security permissions which you can define by username and login, which is fantastic, and that's enforced regardless of what device or what location the person logs in as. So if I was to log in from my home PC, the first time I logged into our SharePoint site, I was prompted to put my RNG username and password in before it actually let me access that site. And since I've put my username and password in, it's enforced and it's pushed down those security policies of what I can see and what I can do, regardless of working from my personal computer at home. And that, as I said, that does work on mobile devices and tablets as well. So you don't lose any control over security there. So please keep that in mind moving forward. The next thing we wanted to touch on is the concept of team sites. And once again, this is another really good element of SharePoint which does promote that level of collaboration and kind of engagement within your organization or your business, especially when you've got a large group of people trying to work together. And how we've broken our team sites down into with our SharePoint site is we've actually focused on the different business units that we have within our organization. So we've got an example of some of them there. So as you can see, we've got a tech team site, sales team, a development team, purchasing team, and so on. And the whole idea of this is that if you're a member of, let's say, the sales team or the tech team, when you click on that link to the site, it's going to take you to a completely different page which has been customized by your SharePoint administrator to be relevant for what you're doing within the organization or relevant for what you're doing within this particular business unit. So this here is a snapshot of our tech team site, and you may remember, if those of you remember the first slide, obviously with the landing page, it's completely different. It's laid out differently. It looks different. It contains different content as well. So I'll quickly run through and I'll give you an example of some of the different areas you can customize to make the team sites more relevant for the people within your business. So coming back to that navigation bar that we spoke about before with the different kind of top level and sub-level kind of documents, you get the ability to have these completely customized for each different team site you set up. So within our technical team site, these have changed from the one we were looking at before. So we've now got links to our job board, technical procedures, technical policies, common passwords, and so on and so forth. And as I said, it's all about putting the content and the tools that your staff or the people within this business unit need to conduct their job or need to be kind of productive, and putting them in the one place. The other thing that we've done, so not just giving them access to internal resources, but also expanding that to external tools. So we've got a section for external links to different web tools that our tech team use. So whether it's our GFI, which is our mail monitoring product, they can click on that and I'll take that to the web portal. We've got our Microsoft Licensing Center as well. We've got our support portal, and we've also set it up so if you, once again, if you have the right permission, you can actually click on there and add links to the site that you may find useful. So this has been opened up to the majority of our senior members of our tech team. So if they come across an online resource which they feel is useful for the lower level 1 guys or level 2 guys to use on a daily basis, they've got the ability to click on that and actually add that link to the external tools section on the tech team page. Once again, this kind of creating that level of collaboration and buy-in to kind of managing and using the particular team site as well. One of the most popular features of SharePoint is definitely the social element of it, and it goes by a couple of different names, and there's a couple of different ways of achieving this now with the introduction of a product called Yammer. But we've used the traditional, we're currently using the traditional message board or the newsfeed feature within our SharePoint site internally. So the whole idea, it becomes very similar to, for those of you who use Facebook or any of the other equivalent ones, it comes very similar to that kind of wall of message wall that you may have experienced on those sites. So we've set this up so any of the senior managers within the tech team can get up there and they can post topics for discussion or links to articles that they may find relevant. So as you can see here, Jason, who's our general manager, he's found an interesting article on the difference between exchange public folders and shared mailboxes within SharePoint for the guys to read. So he's posted that in there. And so for any of the guys who come to the tech team, right on that landing page, the first thing that they're going to see is the latest or the most up-to-date messages from the senior management team within that site there. So a really good way to kind of, once again, promoting that communication and collaboration and kind of bringing people together. And Jason is actually, he likes to use the term propaganda, and he does a lot of this. He posts a lot of stuff on there, and it's really cut down the amount of office memos or kind of office emails which get sent back and forth to kind of communicate this stuff, and it brings it once again into a singleized spot where it's relevant and where people are going to be potentially viewing that organically just on their day-to-day kind of process of using the site or using resources within the site as well. Another really useful feature within team sites is the concept of shared calendars. So we've used this for a number of different sections within our site. So just bringing it back to our tech team, as we've got an on-call roster for our after-hours phone that rotates between some of the engineers. So we've set this calendar up on the home page of the tech team. So as soon as the guys go to that, they can see straight away, right, who's on call for this week or who's got the after-hours phone. And this is really useful. Once again, if you're working or you've got a large group of people working together on a project, you could have different key dates set in there for the project so people can all get in there and see what's coming up. A lot of the organizations we've worked with who have actually implemented SharePoint have also had to have like a holiday calendar on their landing page, so they can see when certain staff members are away or people are in and out of the office. And it once again it replaces that that kind of that old, putting up a corkboard in the lunchroom, so to speak, and really brings that to a digital format and putting it in a section where people can see it, it's relevant, and even giving you the ability to potentially synchronize this with your Outlook calendars as well, which can be really useful in certain situations as well. So team sites, to sum it up, what we've found and what we've seen over the last couple of years, they work really well if you've got a group of people working together on a project. If you've got departments within your business or in your organization who need to share information or need to access a central point of information, a really great way to kind of achieve that is to use the team sites function within SharePoint. Another way that we've used it internally, and a few of our clients have also used it, is they've gone through with those team sites, and within the team sites they've created different folders for their clients, and they've almost created like a client profile for each one of their clients within a particular section of the team site. So, it's not designed as a replacement as a CRM, but it's really, once again, just a common place, like a resource tool. You can put specific information about about your clients in there. So we use it for things like technical diagrams, key contacts within an organization, policies and procedures for this particular site, and we put it there so it's commonly accessible. So the whole idea is that it doesn't matter if one person's away or the account manager's away for this client. If we get something that comes through for this organization or for this client that we need to do, the information's there, so any one of our tech team guys can jump in there quickly, read up on what they have to do, or read up about the site so they understand it, and it just removes that kind of situation where people may have got themselves into where information is kind of hoarded by one particular person, and if that person's away, it's not accessible, and it really overcomes that kind of challenge really well. So the next thing I wanted to quickly touch on is just the security side of SharePoint, and I do get a lot of questions about this. Just how do I set it up? What's the best way to do it? How secure is it? And I just wanted to run through some of the tips that Microsoft actually give on their tech resource sites on how to set it up and how to kind of go about it in a way where it doesn't become a large administrative overhead for the person who's in charge of kind of administering your SharePoint site. So at a very high level, there's two options for setting up security permissions within your SharePoint site. So you've got your groups, and then you've also got your granular permissions. So your group permissions are very much like saying, right, I'm going to create a group called sales team, or I'm going to create a group called finance team, and you can just pull people into that group and obviously set a blanket set of permissions for that group. So anyone who falls within that particular group is covered by those permissions you've set. You've also got the ability to do user-defined or user-specific permissions. So if you've got someone who, for whatever reason, doesn't fit neatly into one particular group, maybe they require access to different security groups or different areas of the SharePoint site, or you want them to have administrative controls over a particular particular team site, but not over the other team sites within your SharePoint site, that's when you'd break it down into kind of the granular permissions. Microsoft has some really good resources online, and there's a URL down the bottom of the slide, and Ross, if you can, I'll get you to post that in, or we can post it up later. But they've got some really good stuff online about how to set it up and kind of giving some guidance around it, and they sum it up really well. And the thing to be really mindful of is when you're planning for your security of your SharePoint site is you want to try and balance the ease of administration and performance against the requirement to be super granular with your permissions and locking it down. And they definitely recommend the use of the standard groups such as members, visitors, and owners to control those permissions. And I'll run through very quickly what those security groups, what they mean basically, and how they function. So the three common groups, and the ones that we actually focus on with a lot of our deployments too, is you've got your visitors, your members, and your owners groups. So anyone who's a visitor or signed up to a visitor site can get onto the site. They can basically have the ability to click on a document library, and they can read documents within that document library, or they can read posts in there and stuff like that as well. If you want to give someone the ability to not only read the documents but to make changes to the documents, you then put them as in the members group for the particular team site. So in that members group, I can now go to any document library within that team site. I can click on the document, I can view it, I can then click edit, and I can edit in the web browser, or I can edit on my local version of Microsoft Office, which is installed on my PC or my laptop. Owners for the team site basically gives you the ability to, you almost become an administrator of that particular team site. So not only can you view and edit documents or read and edit documents, you've also got the ability to change the actual layout of that particular site. So you could add a calendar, you could remove a calendar, you could add more links or more apps down the side of the page as well. So it's basically the permission you give to what you call your SharePoint champion, or the person you've nominated within your business or your organization to be that kind of person who's going to administer the site for you as well. The viewers permission group isn't used a whole lot, but from what how it's been explained to me, it's actually the view only is very much set up for if you want to allow external people access to a particular resource or part of your SharePoint site. So a really great example of this is you may have a may have a policy or procedure or some information for your clients that you want to make accessible to particular clients that you want to give them access to that part of your SharePoint site, but you don't want them to have the ability to view any of the documents which may be in that document library on that page, or you don't want them to edit. So you'd set any of those external people to that view only permission, and it gives them the ability to see what you want them to see without being able to kind of get into anything else that they shouldn't be getting into. So some tips for planning security with your SharePoint site, and this can be expanded pretty much broadly across all IT, and I really recommend taking the time to kind of establish a bit of a governance plan, and sit down and have a think about who's going to be accountable for the decisions around giving access to the specific sections of your site or your IT, who's going to be in charge of not only monitoring that and keeping that up to date as well, and kind of having those people nominated in the very early stages of planning so they can be involved and they understand from day one exactly how it's set up and exactly how it has to be administered going forward. I definitely recommend engaging your IT resource, so sitting down and once you've worked out who's going to be accountable and who's going to administer it and how you kind of want to go about setting it up, speak to your IT resource to get some technical guidance around is it achievable, or B, is there a better way to kind of set that up that will, going back to the earlier tip, which is kind of trying to strike that balance between accessibility and you having a minimal administrative overhead, just making sure that you've kind of adhered to that from a technical aspect as well. And look, where possible, keeping it simple is definitely a really great way to go, especially if you're new to SharePoint and for example, your SharePoint champion that you're going to have trained up within your business isn't overly familiar with the product. You want to keep the security permissions and the settings as easy as possible for that person to understand. Moving on, I quickly just wanted to touch on the differences between the on-premises or the on-site SharePoint versus the SharePoint Online product, which you get through Office 365. And the differences that we've noticed over the last 12 or so months is there is a slight performance difference in regards to the speed of opening and closing documents within a SharePoint site that may be, for example, if it's stored on your local network versus to the one stored over in the Office 365 data center, which is located in Singapore. So, look, for most people, it's not a big deal. From what I've seen, for any businesses or organizations who have a large amount of administrative, office workers who are constantly opening and closing multiple documents throughout the day and editing documents, they're the organizations which I would say, look, we should probably evaluate what the costs are to set up SharePoint on your current servers, and from a performance point of view, it's potentially going to be the better way to go from that point of view. But if you're an organization who's only, you've got a small amount of users who are doing that, or your general usage habits of Office and Word documents or Excel documents is that you only work in one or two different documents a day, or it's a very low amount of low frequency of documents, it's not such a big deal. The site collection quotas and file upload limits and storage limits, basically, in short, they do differ between the on-premises solution versus the SharePoint Online solution. With the SharePoint Online solution, for example, with the storage limits, by default, Microsoft or Office 365 give you a base of 10 gig of storage and then an additional 500 megabytes of storage per user account that you have on a monthly basis. Once you get to that limit, you actually have to pay an additional cost or additional monthly fee for a storage space there. So it's something to be aware of if you do have quite a significant amount of data. You definitely want to have your IT resource kind of do a bit of an analysis on that, work out what is going to SharePoint, what's going to maybe be archived, and just seeing where that sits within your data limit allowance and seeing how that obviously plays out from a different cost point of view. File upload limits. Now, this was actually, this slide was put together probably earlier this year or mid of this year. They've actually recently changed the file upload limits, so the size of the file you can upload into SharePoint. It's not as open as the on-premises one, so there are still limits enforced. But if you do have large files within your organization or within your current setup that you're considering moving to SharePoint, I'd probably encourage you to have your IT resource just to look into that, just to make sure that you're not going to have any challenges with that moving to the SharePoint Online solution. The last thing to be mindful of is there are certain file types which are blocked with the SharePoint Online solution, and it gets a little bit technical here, so look, for anyone who is interested or who want to engage their IT resource to kind of explore it further, once again I've included a link down the bottom of the screen to the Microsoft, the TechNet page where you can go through and actually breaks these kind of differences down, and this is the things to be aware of when kind of evaluating the two solutions. And I definitely recommend looking at that or getting your IT resource just to kind of evaluate that when they're looking at your environment to make that decision which way to go. So challenges and considerations when moving to SharePoint or looking at setting up SharePoint. And look, the data migration point is definitely one of the biggest parts of kind of moving to SharePoint, and actually taking the time to evaluate your data, understand it, understand how it's going to be set out and kind of configured within SharePoint, and then understanding if the data type is right for SharePoint. So to expand on that just very quickly, file types which aren't ideal for SharePoint, pretty much anything which is an extremely large graphical or a video-based file, generally speaking, not the best thing to put in SharePoint. And if you've got a lot of that stuff, you probably want to have a bit of a think about, right, if I am going to use SharePoint for my general office documents, what am I going to do for my large media files, or for example, for anyone who does any design work, so within Photoshop or CAD, stuff like that really isn't ideal for SharePoint. So you really want to start having a bit of a think about maybe having some kind of on-site file server still, or if you want to get rid of your file server, do you just go to what's called a NAS, which is just basically a hard drive which plugs into your network within your office and becomes like a mapped drive. Do you put that stuff on there, and what's the line of separation you're going to draw with that as well? So you really want to have a good think about that. Configuration of your security is obviously very important. I do recommend, as I said, engaging your IT resource and kind of identifying the people within your organization who are going to be accountable for not only planning that and understanding how that works, but the ongoing management of that and kind of auditing that moving forward when you have, for example, new people come into your business or you have people leave. Who's going to be responsible for kind of managing that aspect of it in SharePoint is very, very important. Change management, staff training. Look, once again, this could stem to any IT change within your environment. Moving to SharePoint for people who aren't familiar with it, or if you're coming from that traditional Windows desktop file server environment, it can be quite a significant challenge for people, especially if they're not comfortable with web-based technology. So I really advocate that you take the time to understand the level of skill that the people have within your organization around web-based tools or cloud-based stuff. Identify that early in the piece, so when you're going through the process of obviously planning this change or planning the implementation of SharePoint into your business, you can identify those people, you can organize for training, whether it be one-on-one training sessions with these people, or if you just want to do a certain different type of kind of very beginner group training or advanced group training for different people who have different skill sets, and kind of once again planning ahead and looking to do those things prior to actually going live within the SharePoint site. And that will really go a long way to improving your return on investment with SharePoint. And just, if you have everyone comfortable with it and everyone's understands how it works, prior to launching it, just means the take-up's going to be a lot higher, and people are going to be generally a lot happier when you push the button. So that's it for the content I wanted to present today. Before we move on to the Q&A session, just wanted to give you a quick rundown on RNG Technologies for anyone who's not aware of us or haven't heard of us before. So very quickly, we're an ICT services and consulting firm with offices in Brisbane, Sydney and Melbourne. We currently service businesses and organisations nationwide, anywhere from 5 seats currently up to about 400 is our largest client. Our goal, or our kind of what we want to achieve for our clients when we engage in, is we really want to become a single source supplier for all your data, IT and support and cloud needs. So we have a number of different technical resources within our business, ranging from infrastructure specialists to right up to software development, SharePoint development, and networking engineers for internet and cloud solutions as well. Rightio, I'll pass back to Ross to facilitate the Q&A. If you do have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand or chat them into the text box.
Thank you very much, Tony. Like Tony said, we'll spend some time now for some questions and answers. If you've got any questions at all, just type it into the chat pane and I'll have Tony take a look.
Okay.
No questions?
Ross, I haven't seen your one pop up. So if there are any questions, we might just get you to click on the raise hand button within the control panel. It looks like a little hand. We just think there's some technical difficulties with the go-to meeting question box at the moment. So please feel free to raise your hand. We'll stick around for a couple of minutes. So if you do have any more questions, raise your hand and we'll unmute you to facilitate them.
All right, so no questions for now. Okay, thank you everybody for joining us, and thank you very much, Tony, for the presentation. What we'll be doing is putting this as a webinar recording and sending through an email with that recording and the links that Tony's mentioned. So keep an eye out for that one, and like I said, we do have a webinar once or twice a month, so have a look for next month's one as well. I believe we will be doing one on data sovereignty, which is a very hot topic at the moment. Alrighty, thank you very much. Thanks, Tony.
Thank you.